For the first 150 years of the nation's history, judges applied the law or the Constitution according to the original meaning of the words when it was enacted. But in the last 60 years, a new theory has become dominant, that of the so-called living Constitution that changes with the times.
They're looking for people with Court of Appeals experience because Court of Appeals is where policy is made. And I know this is on tape, and I should never say that because we don't make law. I know. Okay.
You know, that's the problem. They're making a Supreme Court decision about it. Yes, are police corrupt? Yes. Have they done this before? Yes. But now they're saying, it's okay, police. You can get away with this now.
Hey, what about Raza Mecha member, the new Supreme Court nominee? I mean, this lady has come right out. Here's her quote. I would hope that a wise Latina woman with the richness of her experiences would more often than not reach a better conclusion than a white male hasn't lived that life. And that's what Judge said. This is out of the New York Times. Said, and it goes on.
And she's a member of La Raza, and there's an even more disturbing quote on the third page.
But you know what La Raza means? It means for our race, everything. For those outside the race, nothing. Folks, I don't care if you're Hispanic or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm sick of the fact that a massive percentage of Hispanics have been filled with this idea that get the gringos, our race is the God race. When we had the mayor here, he had Aslan Day and said, we are the super race. And it says, whether born from experience or inherent psychological or cultural differences, she said, for jurists who are women and non-white, our gender and national origins may and will make a difference in our judging. So, yeah, this is like a commissar who's going to inject race into this. This is what creates the racism.
Sotomayor, which was the first Latina appointed to the Supreme Court, made a statement that said the direct opposite of this. What do you think when you see that?
That's BS.
It's BS? So do you think that statement's racist?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Racist.
The first Latina justice that's been appointed.
Oh, the girl.
Yeah, you heard about it.
Yeah.
Do you think that should be a person that has these sort of beliefs or things like that?
No.
No? All right,
It should be equal because the country was made equal.
So is it right for a Hispanic woman to say that she's smarter than a white male?
No. No.
No.
No. Well, women were at one point not seen like as equal. So maybe she just, stop.
I am a product of affirmative action. I am the perfect affirmative action baby. I am a Puerto Rican, born and raised in the South Bronx, and from what is traditionally described as a socioeconomically poor background. My test scores were not comparable to that of my colleagues at Princeton or Yale.
The living constitutional theory means we, the unelected judges, get to override the decisions of the elected officials that wrote and ratified the various provisions. And that's called tyranny.
In May, Justice David Souter, one of the proponents of the so-called living Constitution, announced his retirement. Now, just months into his new presidency, President Obama has the opportunity to place a new justice on the United States Supreme Court.
In what way does the Court's observation that the Second Amendment codified a pre-existing fundamental right to bear arms affect your conclusion that the Second Amendment does not protect a fundamental right?
My conclusion in the Maloney case or in the U.S. Sanchez-Villar was based on precedents.
What's your understanding of the test or standard the Supreme Court has used to determine whether a right should be considered fundamental? I'm not asking a hypothetical here. Now, is that your understanding of how the Supreme Court has evaluated whether a right should be deemed fundamental?
The Supreme Court's decision with respect to the Second Circuit incorporation, Second Amendment incorporation doctrine is reliant on old precedent of the court, and I don't mean to use that as precedent that doesn't bind when I call it old. I'm talking about precedent that was passed in the 19th century. Since that time, there is no question that different cases addressing different amendments of the Constitution have applied a different framework. My point is,
in Sanchez Villar, you identified the premise that a right to possess a gun is not fundamental, and the conclusion that New York's ban on gun possession was permissible under the Second Amendment. That unless the right to bear arms is considered fundamental, any gun restriction is necessarily permissible under the Second Amendment. Is that what you believe?
no, sir, because that's not, I'm not taking an opinion on that issue because it's an open question.
Do you agree with his statement that you have generally liberal instincts?
He went into prison just a boy, came out a man. Jeffrey Deskovic spent 16 years of his life behind bars for a crime he didn't commit.
I was convicted at age 17 of a murder and rape, despite a negative DNA test showing semen found in the victim didn't match me.
In 2006, DNA evidence cleared his name.
I crossed paths with Judge Sotomayor because I had filed a Habeus Corpus petition.
The appeal made its way to Judge Sotomayor's court, but it was denied. The reasoning? Because it was filed 4 days late.
Of the Americas because we belong here. We are millions. We just have to survive. We have an aging white America. They are not making babies. They're dying.
nationalsozialistische Gedankens und Wesen verwirklichen, wird sie eine ewige und die Bewegung den Lebensausdruck unseres Volkes und damit ein Symbol des Ewigen. Es lebe die nationalsozialistische Bewegung! Es lebe Deutschland!
Most of the people seemed to be listless beyond hope and astonishment. We discovered that among this stench of disease and decay was something a bit worse than hunger. Moving vaguely on rickety skeleton legs, they were too ill to eat. How grateful they were for a kindly word or gesture. Huts were almost impossible to go near. They were full of tangled masses of people who had died slowly and painfully of starvation and disease, writhing in agony, helpless in puddles of excrement. It was difficult to imagine those orchards now, those rich fields where the stolid cattle cropped the juicy grass. For here, a few minutes away, inside the barbed wire, was nothing but filth and death. Dead prisoners hurled out and stacked in twisted heaps.